Finnick the Fox was the flashiest dresser and the most charming talker in the entire Whispering Woods. His copper coat shimmered under the sun, and his voice was liquid smooth, capable of persuading a squirrel to share its last acorn. Yet, Finnick's greatest skill was not charm, but his mastery of exaggerated truth, which was simply a polite term for lying. He believed that the world was too dull, and he, Finnick, was its designated storyteller, responsible for making life much more interesting than it really was. This bad habit began innocently enough, claiming he'd climbed the tallest oak, when in fact, he'd only reached the first low branch. But soon, the lies grew, fueled by his desperate need for admiration and respect from the older, wiser forest residents. The biggest, most important event in the woods was the annual Great River Raft Race, a competition that demanded not just speed, but precise knowledge of the river currents. Finnick had absolutely no idea how to navigate the tricky upper falls section, which was notorious for capsizing rafts. However, he wanted the prestige of winning more than anything, so he decided his solution wasn't practice, but deception. He approached Grumpy, old Bartholomew the Beaver, the chief river engineer who held the only complete map of the currents. Bartholomew was intensely focused on his dam repairs and hated being interrupted, making him the perfect target for a quick, impactful lie. Finnick put on his most solemn face and approached the busy beaver. "Bartholomew, a disaster!" he cried out, shaking his head tragically. Bartholomew stopped hammering, his small eyes widening with alarm. "What is it, Finnick? Has the lower weir broken?" "Worse than the weir, dear friend," Finnick whispered, leaning in conspiratorially, yet glancing pointedly at the map tucked under Bartholomew's paw. He spun a ridiculous tale about a wind witch who was stealing all the forest's stories, leaving everyone with boring, factual memories. "She demands the river map, Bartholomew. It's the only magical document that can stop her from stealing the memory of the great race itself." Bartholomew, though gruff, was sentimental about the race history, and immediately panicked at the thought of losing those cherished memories. "The memories! Oh, the memories must be protected!" he wailed, handing the map instantly to Finnick. "Take it! Save our history!" Finnick snatched the map, promising to return it to the Elder Story Council right away, and sped off with his prize. He copied the tricky Upper Falls coordinates, memorized the shortcuts, and returned the map, claiming he had successfully defeated the fictional Wind Witch. Thanks to his stolen knowledge, Finnick easily won the race, sailing past the capsized rafts of the honest competitors. When asked about his incredible navigational skill, Finnick simply smiled and claimed he had a secret intuitive connection with the water spirits. The victory was sweet, but the seed of his big lie had now taken deep root in his character, making lying feel like a successful, necessary tool. He continued telling lies about everything: his wealth, his heroic past, and the size of the mushrooms he picked. His reputation became legendary, but his true self began to feel increasingly disconnected from the glorious image he projected. Soon, the physical world around him started to show the strain of his relentless dishonesty. The first sign was when he tried to draw a picture of his own face in the sand with a stick. The line of his paw was firm, but the image he saw was strangely blurred at the edges, as if heat was shimmering off the sand. He thought little of it, concluding that the sand was just too fine for a clear portrait. A few days later, he was admiring a perfectly still pond, waiting to see his famous face reflected in the clear surface. He saw the sky, the tall pine trees, and even a distant bird flying overhead, all reflected with crisp clarity. But when he looked for his own reflection, he saw only a faint, watery distortion where his face should have been. It looked like a ripple had passed, even though the water was still. He splashed the water, but when it calmed, the phenomenon returned. The world reflected perfectly, but his face was vague, translucent, and almost ghost-like. The more he lied, the more distant his reflection became. It was as if the mirrors of the world were rejecting the false image he was trying to project. Finnick became desperate, avoiding streams, ponds, and even shiny black river rocks. He didn't want to confirm his growing terror. He tried to hide the strange effect by simply not looking at reflective surfaces, but the lies kept coming, driven by habit. He exaggerated a simple fishing trip into a battle with a giant lake serpent just to impress a traveling merchant. He claimed he had written a famous poem that everyone knew was written by an old woodpecker, simply because he wanted the praise. His friends, meanwhile, began to step away. They were tired of trying to sift through the facts to find the truth in everything Finnick said. When he warned them, truthfully, about a falling branch, they hesitated, unsure if it was another one of his dramatic, false alarms. The branch crashed close by, and Finnick realized his honesty was now tainted by his reputation as a liar. His deepest moment of deception came when his friend Lila the squirrel needed help identifying poisonous berries for her winter stash. Finnick, in a rush, pointed carelessly at a cluster of safe berries and lied, "Those are the poisonous ones, Lila. Avoid them completely." He was trying to be funny, or to sound clever, but his lie caused Lila to throw away all her good food, leaving her dangerously short for the coming cold. This cruel, casual lie was the final devastating blow to his connection with reality. The next morning, Finnick went to the largest, clearest lake in the entire forest. The surface was like a sheet of flawless glass. He knelt down slowly, bracing himself for the sight he knew was coming. He saw the majestic blue peak in the distance, the white clouds sailing overhead, and the deep blue of the sky, all mirrored flawlessly. But when he bent his head to the surface, he saw nothing of himself. There was no distortion, no blur, no faint outline. It was as if Finnick simply did not exist to the clear surface of the water. His body was there, his shadow was on the bank, but his reflection was gone, swallowed by the cumulative weight of his untruths. A wave of ice-cold panic washed over Finnick. He felt totally invisible, completely unreal. He ran from the lake, straight towards the ancient willow, the home of Sylvanus, the spirit of the forest. Sylvanus only appeared to those in deepest spiritual distress, and Finnick had never been more terrified or desperate. "Sylvanus, Sylvanus, please," Finnick cried, collapsing beneath the sprawling, mossy roots of the great tree. "I am gone. I have no reflection." The air grew still, and a voice, deep and resonant, like the slow growth of the roots themselves, answered him. "You see the truth of your own doing, Finnick," the voice rumbled, causing the leaves to tremble. "The water is the world's most honest witness. It reflects what is real, what is present, and what is true. When you fill your words and actions with lies, you create a separation between your true self and the reality around you. You have built a wall of false stories. The world now sees the wall, but not the fox behind it. Your reflection cannot form, because the true version of Finnick is hidden beneath layers of invention." Finnick sobbed, realizing the full, terrible consequence of his vanity. He hadn't just fooled others, he had fooled himself out of existence. "How do I break the wall? How do I become real again?" he pleaded, burying his face in his paws. Sylvanus answered with a clear, difficult mandate. "The wall is built of every lie you have spoken. It can only be dismantled by the truth. You must go back and confess every single lie you can remember. You must speak the truth, no matter the cost to your pride. You must begin by confessing the river map deception to Bartholomew the beaver. Then, you must apologize to Lila the squirrel for the poisoned berry lie and replace her winter store. The path of truth is always painful at first, but it is the only path that leads back to your genuine self." Finnick, deeply humbled, stood up. He knew he had to face the shame he had earned. He walked slowly back to Bartholomew, whose expression turned immediately sour upon seeing the fox. Finnick didn't flinch. He confessed everything: the lack of knowledge, the Wind Witch story, and the theft of the map. Bartholomew was furious. He lectured Finnick for an hour on the dangers of dishonesty and disrespecting the tools of the trade. Finnick took every word, nodding humbly, accepting the full weight of the beaver's disappointment. Next, he found Lila the squirrel and offered a tearful apology for making her waste her precious berries. He spent the entire afternoon foraging the highest, most difficult branches to find a new, abundant supply of the safest, sweetest berries for her. Lila was initially cold, but seeing Finnick's honest effort and humility, her heart softened. "I accept your apology, Finnick, but trust takes time to regrow." Over the next week, Finnick embarked on a painful quest of honesty. He admitted to the merchant that he had never fought a serpent, and the merchant laughed, calling him an idiot. He admitted to the woodpecker that he had stolen the poem and offered to help repair the woodpecker's nest for a month as penance. Every truth he spoke was a tiny, sharp stone chipped away from the massive wall of his lies. The process was exhausting and deeply embarrassing. He lost friends, he lost admiration, and he lost all the false glory he had built. But as he spoke the truth, a subtle shift occurred in his vision. The world around him, which had seemed hazy and distant, began to look sharp and real again. The colors of the moss and the bark of the trees seemed to intensify, vibrant with undeniable truth. Finally, when he felt he had confessed every major deception, Finnick returned to the still, clear lake. He knelt on the bank, his heart full of quiet hope and heavy humility. He looked down at the flawless surface of the water, no longer demanding to be seen, but simply waiting to see. At first, the water only showed the sky and the trees, just as before. Then, very slowly, like mist parting on a cold morning, an image began to form. It was blurry at first, then gained definition, detail by detail. The image that materialized was his own, the copper coat, the dark eyes, the twitching nose. But the eyes in the reflection were different. They were clear, honest, and held a depth of genuine feeling he hadn't seen before. Finnick smiled a real, truthful smile at the honest fox staring back at him. He was finally seen. He realized that the greatest magic was not in telling fantastic lies, but in choosing the simple, clear power of the truth. The true Finnick had finally stepped out from behind the wall of lies, and the world was ready to reflect his genuine self. We hope you loved the story of Finnick. If you believe that honesty is the best policy, please hit that like button. Share this video with friends, and don't forget to subscribe to Story Crafts Kids for more amazing stories.